See anybody else yet.
So no one else has video, so they're all in here. Welcome, everybody.
Hey, Gretchen. Hello.
Hello.
I can't see everybody, so I'm not sure who is here, but I just wanted to do a quick intro for Dr. Megan Trezza. Megan and I have worked together for several years now. She's come to school and done other parent education workshops for us, and she's always done a really good job. So we're excited to have her back at Del Mar Pines. And I think this is an interesting topic with back to school success strategies under COVID, which is different than we've ever done before. So I don't know if we've ever done this talk before, Megan, but to be working on. So I think it's really good information. And I look forward to hearing about it afterwards. So I've got to take off. I've got a phone call, but I know you're in good hands. So have a great meeting, and I'll look forward to hearing about it afterwards.
Thanks,
Take it
Marcy.
away. All right.
Okay, take care.
Bye.
I'll let you guys know we are recording this just so that we can share it out with anybody who is unable to attend this morning. So it'll be shared with your school community. So if you prefer to turn off your video, I know we automatically have everyone on mute and with videos off. So you can hang out so I can see your face, or you can just turn off your video and just, listen in. We will be opening it up to questions. I always love to, have this be interactive, and being virtual gives us a little bit more of a challenge with that. But if you have questions, I'll ask you to add them into the chat window, or you can just, go ahead and unmute yourselves and in the end. And I think I can unmute everyone in the end if you want to join us here. There's somebody else coming in here. So I'll just go ahead and get started. My name is Megan Trezza, and I'm the founder and CEO of La Jolla LearningWorks. And like Marcy said, we've worked closely with Del Mar Pines for a number of years, usually under different circumstances. I've actually, last year was on campus with you guys and got to spend a fun morning doing our back to school success strategies. I've worked with your 5th grade class to help with the transition to middle school. We do a lot of work with students for private school prep. This year, that landscape looks very different. So if you have any questions on that, you can definitely reach out to me separately and we can chat a little bit about that. But today I'm going to be talking about back to school success strategies. Like Marcy said, kind of couching it in this context of this being the most unusual school year setting that we've ever experienced. And so I think, what I've talked about in the past, some of this is going to be familiar if you've been to one of my talks before for back to school success strategies. And as I went through my slides, my presentation, I realized, now more than ever, this stuff is so important. And just thinking of the, social emotional context for our kids and how crucial that is as a foundation for learning, and just how taxed and challenged they are in those areas now more than ever with dealing with life in this pandemic setting. So we'll go ahead and jump in here. Just a little bit about me. My background is in elementary education and educational therapy. And so my learning center has always focused on working with students one-on-one with very personalized programs. And what we do is we look at students on an individual level, looking at strengths and weaknesses and really looking at the whole child and the context for learning. So we're looking at, actual hard academic skills and where there may be gaps, where there may be unfulfilled potential. And then we're also looking at, strengths and interests and what might be going on in a family setting, what might be going on socially, what other factors are influencing their education, and bring that into context so that, it may not be just about us working with the child, but putting together a partnership. And so that's kind of where my strategies come from, is thinking that, when it comes to learning, when it comes to school, the home and parents, I know now more than ever, right, are such a crucial part of that learning partnership and the foundation of what we create as a learning setting in the household. And in social contexts outside of school, really do contribute a lot to what students bring to the classroom. And so we're going to kind of jump in here, and I'll give you a little overview of what we're going to talk about within that context. So what I have planned for you guys today is kind of 3 different areas of strategies that we're going to be addressing. The first is mindset and thinking that, especially today, right, what our students are bringing to the classroom as a mindset for learning is really their foundation for being able to, attend in class and focus and be able to, approach challenges that come their way and put forth the effort that's required to work through challenges, and then to be able to, consider themselves in that kind of mindset of having, potential for learning and growth and seeing themselves as someone who's very capable of success. And so beyond mindset, we're going to talk about time management routines. And we do a lot at our Learning Center and working with students on what we call executive function skills. And you may be familiar with that. Executive functioning is what is beyond, intelligence and the hard academic skills. It's how you can actually bring your academic skills and bring your intelligence to class and, to the tasks that are required to you to actually demonstrate that capability that you have. And so a lot of that starts with having some good routines that parents can really help students with. And I'll talk to you about the context for that a little bit more, and thinking of where we are right now with kind of a blend of, learning at home, learning at school, and what that might mean for students, especially with their extracurricular activities being different than what they're used to as well. And the last is healthy school work habits. And so thinking that schoolwork, I know, is kind of crossing the boundaries again of home and school, being able to set up an environment and implement, I really think habits is an important, emphasis there, because it's not just something that you do once, but it's the routines and the things that you put into place and help your child develop as habits. That's where they can start to become really independent with them, is where, they've had enough guidance, they've had enough practice, they've had enough reminders, then it becomes something that they take on for themselves. So we're going to cover these 3 areas this morning, and then we'll have some time for questions at the end. So first, on cultivating a mindset for success, these are the strategies I was talking about setting your child up for that belief in themselves of their potential, and also thinking now with this context of a lot going on in the world around students that can be very anxiety producing, can be very, kind of, I guess, superseding of what they might be thinking about regarding school, like, where are my friends, or where is my, practice that I'm used to after school? Like, these things can kind of get in the way. So like I said, these are strategies that we've used in the past, but I think are more important now, than ever before. So first off, I love this little quote, and I have this, I'll have it in a packet I can share with you guys. If anyone's interested, you can share email addresses with me and I can pass that on to you guys. But this little quote I'll just read. "When you wake up in the morning, Pooh," said Piglet at last, "what's the first thing you say to yourself?" Pooh says, "What's for breakfast?" "What do you say, Piglet?" "I say, I wonder what's going to happen exciting today," said Piglet. Pooh nodded thoughtfully. "It's the same thing." So the idea here is that, what's so important is our frame of mind, right? If we bring to the beginning of our day and have the forefront of our mind be our worries or our concerns, and that's what's really going to follow us through the day. If we can bring to the forefront of our day on the opposite side, things that make us feel good and, what we're going to, look forward to happening, it really sets the day off in a whole different framework. And there, I guess there's some that may think this sounds kind of like woo woo, or, kind of like there's a lot of thought around, mindfulness, and it's actually really rooted in science at this point. There's lots of documentation about how mindfulness can have huge power over even antidepressant drugs to change people's mood and, even, to help with real, like, clinical disorders. And so, on a very, basic level, the way that we train our kids to think, just, it does affect them neurologically. And so what I have here that I'll show you is kind of a basic way that you can train your children, and I think it's a wonderful practice to do together too. So you actually kind of take this in on yourself too. But thinking of having a way to start each day with focusing on the positive, and like, you're thinking of who, that may be a pot of honey, it may be Piglet, thinking of what you have to look forward to that day. And, always thinking of, what's in your capability to make happen, right? You can't just, it would be wonderful if, the pandemic ended today. Well, yes, we all agree on that. But that's not within our power. But what is within our power? And so that's a conversation to have with our kids, just to start the day off right. I have a picture here. This is called the 5-minute journal. And I've used this for years now. I want to say at least 5 years, maybe more. So you can actually purchase a pre-printed, journal, and there's different spin-offs of this. If you go to 5-minute journal as just a Google, you'll see they have a kids version and they have an adults version. So you can actually order these journals right there. And it has a morning practice, and then it has an afternoon or kind of evening before bed practice. So what I love about the morning is that it has these very concrete aspects, 3 different, things that you go through to think about. And the first is just, what are you grateful for? And you may have heard, there's a lot of talk and, kind of the podcast world, I think, and just in even psychology today, of the focus of gratitude and the fact that you can't be in a negative thought when you're focused on what you're grateful for. And that then, has biological, kind of physiological effects of, when you're activating the brain places that are thinking about things that make you happy, that make you feel good, that are positive in your life. It then stimulates the chemicals that make us feel good. And so that is actually really self-serving, in the sense that as you start to do that on a regular basis, you give yourself more of that neurobiological stimulation of, the things that make you feel good. So thinking, today that, our kids may have a lot more to be worried or concerned about, starting their day to think about what they're grateful for. And it could be anything simple and, something concrete like my warm bed, or, my favorite comforter, just of what may be something they think about in the morning. Or, thinking, I get to go to school. There's lots of kids that don't get to go see their friends, and I get to go see my friend at school today, or I get to see my teacher today. So whatever it is that contextualizes, their day in a way that makes them feel happy. And then thinking of what would make today great. And this again is within the context of what they can do. So, right, we can't end the pandemic today, but we can, think about what would make it great. Maybe having my favorite snack, or being able to, play outside for a little bit before I go to school. Or, maybe it would make today great to just do something nice for someone else, and think on, maybe it's just writing a card to your teacher to say, thank you for, helping me with something yesterday. So those are, things again that also reinforce that we have self-efficacy, in that sense that we're capable of creating and manifesting what we want to have out of our day. And, if you take a child who might be worried about something, or thinking, oh, there's that math test today and I really don't want to have it. Well, what would make that great? What would make it great today? Well, if I, tried my best and, I got through the whole test, and I didn't feel panicked through the whole thing. Okay, well then that's our baseline. Let's just shoot for that. If you get through that test today, feeling great, it doesn't matter what the outcome is on it, as long as that's what you are able to do today to stay focused and get it done. So that's a good way to kind of work through some of those fears or challenges that might come up, and just kind of twisting them around to what can a child be, responsible to make happen in that day. And then a positive affirmation is always reinforcing, what a child's, positive mindset is about themselves. So, I am a very great math student, or I'm just a loving friend, or I am a wonderful son or daughter. So whatever it is that they can reinforce about something positive for themselves. So these kind of things that you go through then on a daily basis have a lot of power in not only, affecting your child's mood and what they bring to the classroom in learning that day, but also in just their mood and their, sense of, I said that before, self-efficacy, but that ability to, make things happen for themselves as they go throughout their day, their week, their years, their life. So the next point that I have here is thinking on how we talk to our children about challenges. And so growth mindset is something you may have heard of. I know it's a very, kind of popular trend right now, but the main point behind growth mindset and what you can do with it as far as parenting is turning a child's belief around from thinking that they are something to that they are in a process of becoming something. And that's really important, not only for a child that's struggling, but for a child that excels as well, because we all hit roadblocks at certain times. And we have to know that we're capable of, making change, that we're capable of growth. And if we think, well, I'm always a good student, that's just who I am, I'm a good student. And then you hit a point where something happens and you don't see yourself being a good student in that moment. If you've just identified with, I'm a good student, but right now I'm not being a good student, you don't know what else to do. But if instead you're identifying with, I am always a hardworking student, or I am a student who, tries my best, then you are actually looking at what you can change and put into the effort and action to get a certain outcome when you have a challenge. And so I'll give you some examples of this. What I have here is specific, meaningful praise. So first of all, we're going to do a little video here. This will play for me. Here we go. This is just an introduction to what you can do to kind of frame this for your children.
Chapter 1. Mojo discovers a secret about his brain. A secret that will change the way he looks at the world forever. Our story begins with Mojo, a friendly monster who loved school, especially math. Until one day, when something terrible happened. The math problems got harder. Nothing made sense anymore. Mojo had a devastating thought. He just wasn't smart enough for school. It seemed the only reasonable thing to do was pack his things and leave forever. Just then, he heard his friend Katie laughing. "Mojo, you can't just give up," she said. "I have no choice, Katie," said Mojo. "You're either born smart or you're not. And I realize today that I'm not." "Mojo, that's not how it works," said Katie. "Anyone can be smart. You just have to work at it." "That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard," said Mojo. "It's not ridiculous, it's science," said Katie. "Neuroscientists studied the brain for years and discovered an incredible secret, that your brain is like a muscle. When you try challenging things, like those hard math problems, you're giving your brain the exercise it needs to get stronger, which makes you smarter." "Ooh, is that really true?" said Mojo. "Of course," said Katie. "It's like how when you were a baby, you didn't know how to talk, but you kept trying, exercising your brain, until one day you could." Mojo! Mojo couldn't believe what he was hearing. If your brain was really like a muscle, did that mean anyone could become smarter? Even him? He turned to ask Katie, but just then, she had to be off to her next class. But maybe you can answer Mojo's question. What do you think? Can Mojo become smarter? What about you? Now that's an interesting question indeed.
So you can see they make that really fun. But the point really is, I'm going to try and get to this. So the point really is that, we want our kids to be able to approach challenges with that sense of curiosity and knowing that, everybody is going to have growth at different points, and we're all going to hit challenges at different points. And I think now, thinking of the context where there's just a little more stress on our lives, that affects our ability to show up for those challenges And so, that may impact how your child is able to, put forth effort. And so I think, leaning into what I call purposeful praise. And really what that's about is looking for those kind of acute growth points. When you think of like that example of Mojo learning to talk as a baby, we would praise like just an initial sound that a baby makes. Wow, you did, that's something that you get so excited about as a parent. Or, a child learning to walk and they stand up and they fall down and you're so excited that they stood up, and you're not, it's this celebration as they fall down. We have to remember that in our minds as our kids are going through these different challenges that, aren't as obvious to us as growth points. But, looking at whether that challenge is just, showing up for school with a positive mindset, if they're worried about things, or, being focused and getting through exercises that they need to do, when they're feeling a little burnt out from being on a computer, or, whatever it might be. Maybe it's even just, that they're being able to step back and give themselves a break that they need so that they can, get back to a task with a little bit more refreshed mindset. And so the way that we talk to our kids can reinforce either that growth mindset or what the opposite is, which is a fixed mindset. And the fixed mindset is, kind of thinking like, I am this, I am that, and I can't really change it. So instead of, here as an example, I'm so proud of you for getting another A on your spelling test. That's praise on the result. And what we want to do is we want to praise what the process is. And so thinking, you could say, I'm so impressed to see you using your spelling words in your writing. So you're saying, I'm excited that I'm seeing what you're doing here, and you're doing something that's going to help you with your learning. And then another example could be, wow, the time you put into studying really paid off for your spelling test. Nice job. So now it's not just about them being smart and being the kid that gets A's, but now they can connect with, the reason why I got an A was because I put the effort into studying. And I actually have a little personal anecdote. I remember in college, I was in a class where, that I got the best grade out of anyone on our first test. And our teacher brought it up to the whole group and shared it with everyone and was like, Megan got the best grade on this test out of everyone in the group. I want you to share your response, Megan. This is so great, blah, blah, blah. So they shared it. And in my mind, I thought, all right, I've got this class. Like, I just got it. I'm the best in this class. And the next test, I got probably one of the lowest grades on the test. And what I failed to notice at the time, until I then went and talked to my professor later and kind of talked through like what happened, because he was very curious what happened between the first test where you got the best grade and the second test where you got one of the worst grades. The first one, I put in so much effort. I was so afraid. I didn't know how I was going to perform. And, I really wanted to, do my best. And I studied for hours and I reviewed all the material. And the second time I thought, well, I know this stuff. I'm so smart. I've got this. And I went into this test and I hadn't prepared. I hadn't done what I had done before. And sure enough, my outcome was about what you would expect for somebody who hadn't really put in the effort. And so, just thinking of that difference, it's not about your smarts. It's about, the effort you're willing to put in and what you do in your process. So reiterating that for our children, and for students, so that they can see what it is that attributes to their success and repeat that, and not just think, oh, I'm just so smart, I got this, I don't have to try hard. That's really what this is all about. And where they talk in the video about this coming from science. If you're curious and you're not super familiar with it, look up Carol Dweck. She's the researcher who kind of, came out of Stanford University and brought this to the world through TED, and has a really awesome TED talk about growth mindset. And it's really, she emphasizes the fixed mindset versus the growth mindset, and just how like these little phrases that you can, change and how you speak to children have such a huge impact on their outcomes academically, or really in any area. So this is also where, as parents, we like to protect our children from failures. And so I wanted to just emphasize too that, there's a lot of thought around failing forward, and that's really the process for growth. And at our Learning Center, we always talk to students. Actually, one of our first trainings for our staff is about them being brain trainers and equivalating that to, like an exercise trainer, that you are actually exercising a child's brain, and, to relate that to our students so that when they come in for tutoring and they may have any kind of, preconceived notion of, I have to get tutoring because I'm not so smart. Well, it's not about that. Let's throw that out. We're getting tutoring because you have so much potential, and we want to help you to, fulfill that potential. And you might have some cool goals, and we want to make sure you can get to those goals and that you're developing the skills you need to achieve those things in your life. And as parents, it connects because, we're dealing with students in a setting where we see their mistakes and we're looking for their mistakes, and we're excited when they make mistakes because that means we hit a growth point. We hit a place where we can see that we've challenged the student to a point where now we can work through something to get them to a higher level. And as parents, I know you often feel like, it kind of hits your heart, right? When your child's getting into a place where they're struggling or they're frustrated. And so I have this in here just to emphasize, your role as a parent in helping your child to work through those failures. Not that you have to solve the problem for them, but thinking the answer is supported problem solving, talking them through it, and posing a lot of questions to them. So, when they're stuck on something, it might be the answer. I love breaks. I think breaks are so important. You hit a point where you're frustrated with something, you take a break, you go and, get some movement, get some energy, get some oxygen to your brain. And oftentimes that's all you need to come back and see it in a different light and work through it. Or it may be that it's something that you need a little extra help on. And, the idea is you're just going to put a Post-it note on that and it says, ask teacher. And you come back to that, the next day when you can get some help from your teacher. But, thinking of, how can we help our children to, take a little more sense of agency out of their challenges and realize like there's something they can do, even if that something to do is stepping away from it or asking for help. Those are important things to emphasize for them. So just a couple other examples here, allowing your child to experience some healthy failures. So this one I know is something I hear so often in our Learning Center, the student forgot their homework again, and, parents calling us and my child forgot their homework again. And do I bring it to them at school, or do I just let them, experience, losing their lunch period or whatever, the consequences? And, of course, there's, times where you're going to want to like rush in and be the hero for your child and save them for it. But, it's allowing your child to actually go through the process of experiencing their consequences oftentimes the best thing to do, and knowing, through elementary years, it's not like a grade is going to make or break them. And what's really important is what they learn through the process of these years. And so, getting them to, find, some, I guess, like some independent thought around what they could do to solve this on their own or do differently. And, talking it through of, maybe there's something that you can change in a routine or, in a system in the house. And if they come up with it on their own, they're going to be more likely to follow through with it than if you were to come up with it, for them. So just thinking about that one as an example. And we will go ahead and move on to time management routines. So again, this is all about you being the kind of academic coach, I guess, is a way to say it, for your child in a way. And the way that you can set up your time management routines can also do a lot, just like mindset, to bring your child to class with, a clear mind, a positive attitude, and without added stress that might get in the way of their ability to focus in class. So here I have this. Balance is the key to life. And, I love this because I think of, our routines and the things that we do as things that we need to adjust all the time. And, with our context in life right now, it's more important than ever. We need to be able to allow for more breaks in learning, especially when there's more screen time learning. And we'll get into that towards the end here. more concrete strategies, but just thinking, our children, when we talk about executive functioning skills, it's a part of the brain in the very front, the frontal lobes, and they're not fully developed until our early 20s. So no matter what, even if you have a child who's super organized, to some extent, you are your child's executive assistant, and, you're there to help them figure out how to adjust and balance and, figure out the systems that are going to work for them, especially as life, throws us some different circumstances, just because their brains don't have that capability. And, good teachers do a lot for setting up systems for students to help them develop these skills. And as parents, we can do a lot to reinforce that too. So here we go. So first, this may be something you've heard a million times over and over again, but I feel like if it's something that you might have heard and haven't implemented yet, it's still super important. And, just thinking, to get your year started off right, especially for our students right now where life looks different than what they're used to, having something visual for them to relate to and know, when they have free time, when they have things that they can look forward to, when they have, time to get projects done, just having all of that in a visible place makes a huge difference for them. And, they are not always capable of doing this on their own. So being able to have a routine where you're sitting down and working with them, to update a calendar on a weekly basis or create something on a monthly basis and post it for them, involve them in the process as much as possible, but also know that, they kind of need you to be the directors of this to, also model for them how you can live a life that has, some good organization that then allows you to kind of flow smoothly through every other part of your life. So with a monthly calendar, the key here is to have a good overview. And that helps you to see, when you're talking about what your events are on a weekly basis, where you can plug in time for what needs to get done each week. Knowing, that you're taking a step back first to put the month all together with anything that's concrete that you must attend or, are looking forward to attending as far as holidays or other important dates or anything that's a family or, extracurricular activity. And then you can also plot in there, and you should, kind of plan ahead so students can see where their deadlines are or project due dates or tests, anything like that they may need to plan ahead for, and, can kind of work in the backwards planning. And that's where, as parents, we can help students, start to understand the process and the purpose of using calendars is when they really interact with it. So when they say, okay, well, I have a test on this day, that's not the end of the conversation. That's the beginning of the conversation. You have a test on this day. Let's take a look. Wow, we have a school, program that week. So we better, plan way ahead. We're going to have to start the week before that to start working for this test or this project. And let's see, here you have this activity in the afternoon. So that's probably not going to be a great day to be doing this. So let's look at this other day. So that conversation that you have with your child is starting to get them to think through how you plan, and you're modeling for them how to do that in a really healthy way. The other piece I have here is build in rewards. And so the rewards are the things that we need to know that we have as breaks in our life from things that might be a little bit more, energy focused or, just maybe not preferential activities. So thinking of, if there's rewards, especially right now for, activities that kids get to do that they really love, whether that's, getting to actually see a friend or, do some family outings, planning those into the calendar. And, I love to take our calendar and do it in different colors, so that you have, a color for, school time or kind of work time, a special color that, makes things stand out as the deadlines or projects, test dates, those sort of things. And then something fun, maybe even add stickers to it or a glitter sparkle pen or something for the reward stuff that you build in. So we all kind of need that structure too, to just know that there's work, but then we also get to have play and fun too. And on a weekly basis, this turns into a routine. So thinking of when can you sit down with your child on a weekly basis and talk to them about what they have coming up, show them what's going on in their week, give them a sense of, it's not just about work time, but there's a lot of fun time too. And hey, where do you need to have some time where there's just, unplanned, unscheduled time where you can get those brain breaks that you need. You know, knowing kids do so much of their like real memory processing in off time. So, you know, we need those breaks. We need that time just to play. But, you know, going through that exercise on a weekly basis and looking at each day is something that also really helps to strengthen executive functioning skills for our children. So the other piece of this is morning and evening routines. And what we talk about with morning and evening routines is mostly it's about the success of a morning routine, because it's about thinking about things that you can do in your evening to make your morning less stressful. So the key for this is really to kind of talk through what's everything that you're doing in the morning that might be slowing you down, or that might be, you know, causing a little bit of extra stress or pressure in the morning. Or maybe you want to work in something more fun into your morning and you're looking for, you know, how can we actually get some outdoor time, some, you know, a walk for the dog or whatever it is, just playing in the backyard. How can we work that in, or sitting down as a family to have breakfast? Well, the key is usually thinking through what out of your morning routine can you shift over to the evening. So I always like to have that conversation. We do this in our executive functioning coaching programs with our students, and always have fun doing it with our staff trainings too, because then I get to think through my own routines and go, wow, wait, I really could, you know, save a lot of time in my morning if I did this one thing in the evening, you know, whether that's picking out my clothes or, you know, setting up my coffee right before, you know, I go to bed so that it's ready for me in the morning and I have one less step. And just knowing, you know, if you end up rushing, you know, it's usually a matter of like 3 to 5 minutes that would make the difference. So you can kind of see through, you know, doing a little, you know, inventory of your, you know, morning and evening activities and just start shifting things over. There we go. So this is the process. So first, just list the tasks that you need to do to get ready for school in the evening before, that you do already, sorry, to get ready for school in the evening before and the morning. Think through how long each task takes, and then, you know, look at it and say, well, you know, obviously you can't brush your teeth for the morning and the evening. You got to do it both times, but you could pick out your clothes. You could pack your lunch. You know, there are different things that you could do in the evening, and then actually do the little assessment of how much time it will save you, and, you know, kind of think through, wow, that's 5 minutes. Well, that's cool. 5 minutes could give us that time to, you know, get to the car and not have to be stressed, not have to be rushing, you know, or you could get to school earlier and play on the playground. So, you know, that's a good way to also, you know, kind of involve your child in an executive functioning process of really thinking through how they use their time, and knowing that that has an impact too on how they're going to feel going through their day. The last thing around time management is our weekly organizing procedure. And this is something else that I have in a handout. I can also email you guys if you want a copy of this. But the weekly organizing procedure is just, again, about reinforcing that organization, executive functioning skills. These are not just things that you do once. These are about having habits. It's about, you know, having routines. And I'm, you know, just as guilty as anyone else, if not maybe more so. My husband is the organized one in our pair. And, you know, I love creating the system, but then I have the hardest time following through with any kind of routine to maintain that system. And, you know, knowing that that's where the stress comes in, when you start to see the papers pile up, or when you need to find something and you're like, I don't know where it is. It's over there. It's over here. You know, where is it? So the idea is to, you know, get your child into a habit, and maybe it's something that would be beneficial for you too, you know, of just having a weekly organizing procedure. And so I'll show you what we do for this. So this is a lot of steps. Like I said, I can share the handout with you guys later too via email, or I can send it to Marcy to pass along to everyone. But the idea is, you know, you want to start with selecting a day and time, and this goes on your calendar. So it goes on the monthly calendar every week. And then when you start talking about a weekly, you know, view of your life, it's always going to be plugged in there, same day, same time, as much as possible, so that it reinforces that habitualness, and then you have to think about it so much less. You just get used to doing it at that time. And, you know, the idea is to just go through everything and start, you know, thinking through, hey, what can I get rid of? What do I need to save? If I need to save it, where does it go? And knowing that, you know, it's not anything that's like brain science, right? It's just a matter of like simplicity and being able to maintain the procedure. And I'll tell you, when we work with students on executive functioning skills, the biggest hindrance to them actually, doing the things that we're teaching them is that it feels too easy. Oh yeah, that's so easy. I could do that. That's so easy. Like, yeah, it's very easy. The hard part is doing it all the time with regularity. And, oftentimes for kids, things that are so easy seem so boring. It's so easy. It's not a challenge. It's just, I don't want to do that. But that's where parenting comes in and where the reinforcement comes in. And, at some point, we've seen when students start doing this, they start feeling so good about it because it alleviates so much stress in their life in so many different ways, that they do start doing it on their own and, with willingness and, getting excited and knowing it doesn't have to take long. It's a quick process. It's just a matter of needing to do it. That's hard. That is the hard part, is actually doing it. So that brings us to now talking about some healthy school work habits. And these used to be healthy homework habits as my title, but thinking that schoolwork, is now more at home sometimes than it is at school. And we want to make sure that our students are working, in a way where it is healthy for them, not just, in a kind of brain learning sense, but really biologically. And spending more time on their screens, spending more time indoors, spending more time sitting, it has a lot of health impacts. And we actually just had a webinar last week through La Jolla LearningWorks with a really fantastic developmental optometrist who talked through screen time challenges and what happens physiologically, biologically with having extended screen time. And so now we actually have opened a virtual academy for elementary students, and we're implementing these techniques in our virtual academy so that students, are, getting all sorts of structure and pointers from teachers to make sure that they have a healthy work system going on while they're engaging online. And so just knowing whether your child is in school or at home, there's more we're doing on our screens, more we're doing with computers. And so it's even more important than ever before to have some really good, healthy work habits. So first of all, thinking of your home classroom or your homework station, just some simple tips here, things that we find that can get in the way for students. Oftentimes, we have kids that are working at the dining room tables, and that may not be the best place for them to work. It could be the best place for them to work, it just depends. But just really thinking of, that location as how that's going to impact them with distractibility. So it may be that you need to keep an eye on them, and working at the dining room table is the best place for them. But then we might need to think through, how do we limit the distractions? And maybe that means that they do work with noise canceling headphones on while they're doing their work at the computer, at the dining room table, or in the kitchen, or wherever that might be. Or, if they're, in a separate room and there's not as much distraction or distracting noises in that room, but there are around the house, you can think of getting the sound machines that are, we use it. I have a 3-year-old, so we still use this for her for bedtime, and thinking, it helps with like being soothing, but it also helps to block out outside noise. So you can get these sound machines on Amazon and, station that just right at the door of your child's room. And then that kind of will, kind of contain the noise that's happening outside of their room and kind of be a boundary so that they have a little bit more capability to focus in their room. But just thinking, simplicity is really the key as far as setting up a workstation and making sure that things that they need as far as tools for learning are labeled and accessible, that you have these containers. And I know you probably are, up to your ears and, tips and tricks on organizing a homework station. But one of the other points I wanted to bring up is just thinking around the ergonomics of our kids, spending more time sitting at a computer. We'll talk about this on the next couple slides too, a little bit more around the screen time tips. But just thinking, it's important for kids to have options to, be sitting or standing, if it's possible for them to, have a desk that's a standing desk where they can, raise and lower themselves. Or just thinking, having those exercise ball chairs, those are really awesome. They support core strength, and actually give children a little bit of movement while they're sitting, which is actually pretty helpful to stimulate focus as well. So just kind of thinking that those points through, and maybe just take a look and with some fresh eyes at your child's home workstation, and just see if there's any improvements that could be made there. Also thinking around lighting, wanting to make sure that there's really good lighting for them in that space too. So some healthy school work guidelines. So like I said, this kind of is taking from the presentation we had with Dr. Carl Hillier on screen time health from more of a visual perspective, but also some of these are just some tips that we use at our Learning Center. One is, the first there is a visual checklist. And so like what you're looking at on this screen here and seeing, just these 4 boxes, there's, 4 items, having a checklist that you can see of the things that you need to get done is very calming for students. It's something that gives them a good framework to be thinking of what the expectation is for them during the time that they, need to be doing work. And it also can help to just kind of plug in, it as a checklist, like, here, I'm going to do this activity and then I'm going to take a break. I'm going to do this activity and then I'm going to take a break. And kids love like doing that on a mini whiteboard and being able to check it off. So that's always fun to just, keep something like that handy, have a whiteboard where they can, create their checklist and check it off as they go. The second thing here is a break time rule that came from the Screen Time Health webinar that we did. Dr. Hillier calls it 20-20-20 screen time breaks. And the idea is every 20 minutes, you should take a break from your screen for 20 seconds to be looking at least 20 feet away as far as like distance. And so the idea is with screen time, we're doing a lot of up close work, and that actually starts to impair our long-term vision. And so we want to be able to take breaks and look off into the distance. I'm looking off right now. I'm looking outside my window here, and I can see out. I'm looking at the trees. He suggests, kind of looking around like 4 corners of a room or like 4 corners of your distance, around your screen, and also just getting up and moving during this time, even if you're, if you can take a walk and get away from the screen. So my next tip is a timer. And the image you see on the screen with the little clock with the red, that's called the time timer. You can get a time timer. You can get many knockoffs of the time timer now. The time timer got to be really expensive, and I was really happy to see there were actually some great knockoffs that are a lot cheaper on Amazon now. But it's great because it gives kids a good sense of what each increment of time really means. So instead of it just being a digital timer with a number, they can actually see the time going away as the red kind of closes in on the circle. And so that's a good way for them to see, both how much time they should be on task for that 20-minute time to be working versus, maybe a 5-minute break that they're going to take in between exercises that they're doing. And the last tip on this page is about the ergonomics and thinking of how you're setting up your child's workstation. This also came out of our webinar, which I can also share with you guys. We have it recorded and it really was fantastic. But thinking the way that you set up your child's workstation, a lot of our kiddos have laptops right now that they're using, and they have a tendency to get really close to the screen. And there actually is a lot of physiological, neurological benefit in having some distance from your screen. So Dr. Hillier suggests having a remote keyboard or having what do you call it? A separate monitor that you're using if you're using a laptop. But some way to make sure that there's enough distance, at least an arm's length distance from the child and their screen. Just something else you might want to put in your little checklist as you go to review your child's workstation. So now some screen time learning tips. One of the things that has come up now over and over again through our Learning Center and talking to families, both through our digital platform, that are in our virtual academy, and those that are, learning in different formats right now and attending one-on-one tutoring with us, is these kids getting burnt out on screen time, which makes perfect sense. They're not built to be sitting and staring at screens all day long. None of us are. But one of the challenges that we have is that our kids today love their screens. They don't necessarily love them for learning, but they love them for video games. They love them for chatting with their friends. They love them for, looking at YouTube videos. And so when they have breaks, that's the easiest thing for them to go to. So if you can relate to this and you've seen your child now take breaks where they're just still sitting and looking at a screen, I just want you to kind of shift your mind around, what can you do to implement some non-screen time breaks for them? And I have this as screen time learning tips because it's really essential for them to be able to then get back to a screen and be focused and attend and do what they need to do. It also impacts the way they're able to get deep sleep. And all the tips on this page also impact sleep. So thinking if a child doesn't get into deep sleep, which is impacted by the amount of screen time that they get without breaks and, without the blue light blocking lenses and right before bedtime, all of that, but it's really about even screen time throughout the whole day. It impairs their memory because we take our memories and we register them in our sleep. They get, transferred to long-term memory. So that's one piece. If you have, overloading screen time where you might see your child's, performance in school start to slide, it also can affect their ability to just be focused and attend in school the next day because they're tired, because they haven't gotten deep sleep. And also, of course, that can affect mood, that can affect anxiety, because, sleep does so much for us to then, have that emotional resistance and resiliency. So the non-screen time breaks, the activities that you can come up with, whether it's a puzzle station or it's a craft station or starting a garden or, just like getting a whole bunch of jump ropes and hula hoops and, random things that they can do outside for a 5-minute break. Those are the things that are actually going to allow them to be more capable functioning learners when they are doing their school time work. The blue light blocking lenses are also very important. If you watch our webinar, Dr. Hillier has a suggestion for lenses that go beyond the blue light that actually make the screen essentially, look like it's further in the distance, which does a little bit more of that, like kind of, prevention of the visual impact of looking at things too close up. But just the standard blue light blocking lenses, they don't have to be like amber tinted. They can be clear like the ones in the picture here. And students should be using these all the time. These are my blue light blocking lenses and I wear them whenever I'm looking at my screen. And that will help with making sure that they get good sleep time at night. And then the other key piece is ending screen time. This I know may seem far-fetched, but ideally 2 hours before bedtime. Excuse me, we've been playing around with this in my household. It is tough to implement, but we've tried doing like TV time before dinner and then after dinner, just playing around, art, reading books, doing puzzles, doing all of that stuff instead of the screen time. We've actually even been doing star walks at night to just get outside. And so, whatever you can do to, curb the screen time at night, that's really going to help with the sleep, which then, like I said, impacts emotions, impacts learning, impacts mood, all of that. So let's see, I'm not sure what this blank screen is here. My conclusion here, just to wrap up, parents, you are learning guides. There's so much you can do to help with, the structured study time that we talked about, the breaks, the praise, and, you really set that foundation for students to go to school and believe in themselves. And then just remembering too that, it's important, as much as you are a guide for learning, I think, and right now in this context, being even more of an active parent in schooling, that we also step back and just get to be parents and plan in that time to, have some fun rituals and, talk about things that are not school related, just get out and play with your kid, giving them some one-on-one time. And, with all of those activities we talk about as non-screen time activities, they're great for all of us as we're spending more time on our screens too. So, hopefully there's some things you can find that you can enjoy together as a family. So I have left a few minutes here for questions. I'm going to open my chat window. So if you have any questions you want to just enter into the chat. I know I have one thing here. And this looks like something for the group to discuss here. Marcy's coming back to us here. So yeah, if anybody wants to unmute, you can unmute yourself, or if you want to, add a question in the chat, feel free. While I'm waiting here for chats, I'll just tell you guys, if you're looking for any, support with your children this year or help, And like I said, we do a lot of different one-on-one programs. So we do work with students to help them prepare for private school entrance exams. So if you have a child who's making a transition to middle school next year, the ISCE is not going to be a factor for admissions to most schools, but they still may have some testing that they need to do, and we help students with their admissions applications and just preparing for interviews, that sort of thing too. And then we do our one-on-one tutoring now. We're doing it all virtually. So we've been seeing students since March virtually and having really wonderful success for them. So if there's anything that your child needs one-on-one attention with, you can feel free to reach out to me here. I don't see any questions coming in. Does anyone have anything you want to share? Let's see.
Hi, can I ask you a question real quick?
Sure.
My name's Gretchen Bandley. So I have a question for you. I just have thoughts on, a lot of elementary school internet. All right, he's still here.
No, your sound is cutting out there.
Yeah, sorry, I'm trying to go to maybe a spot that I can get better internet. Can you hear me still?
That's good.
Oh, okay, great. Oh, perfect. Okay, I'll stay here. So my question was, with the kids who are doing full day learning, one of the things that I've found difficult is that, you'll come in and find that they're on other browsers, and, this is expected, right? We all do it as adults too, but so just kind of your thoughts behind how to kind of manage kids, when you think about screen time, when you think about being distracted, that kind of stuff, when they're online learning, if they were in school, we would just take away their phones or take away, their electronics, but when they have to be on electronics, how you can kind of support them staying focused for an entire day.
Yeah. And I think that really leans into, what we were talking about is breaks, and knowing that that's so important for them to have breaks, that they're going to have a hard time attending and focusing for a longer period of time. And we know that kids have shorter attention spans for digital work than they do in person. It's just a matter of fact. And so if they're hitting that point, it may be a good, conversation to have with the teacher of just being more mindful of taking breaks, and maybe putting that out to the class of, hey, raise a hand when you're feeling like you need a break, or just, kind of creating a culture where they can share when they're, starting to lose focus, because it's hard to pay attention. The other thing too is I think needing to, and this is what we've worked on a lot with our virtual academy setup, is having a pair between what a student's doing digitally and what they're doing in front of them hands-on. And so that may be another piece of it. And, we always focus at the way LearningWorks on thinking of multiple intelligences and different learning styles. And, I'll be the first to tell you, I'm not a great listener. If you just, strap me down and I don't do anything with my hands, I'm not going to remember as much as if I'm taking notes or drawing or writing, or even just moving a little bit. So that's where I really like the exercise ball chair, because it gives a little bit of stimulation that helps a child to actually focus. And I've seen this in testing kids, where I've had flat test scores that then shoot up as I let a child sit on the floor and move around how they want to. So, just thinking through, it's probably stemming from your child having a real, more neurological challenge with attending for that length of time. And so, setting some ground rules for sure, but you can't set those ground rules with unrealistic expectations, right? You can't just say, you must just stay and focus on the teacher while they're talking, with your hands in front of you, just listening, because that might not work for a kid. They might need some movement. They might need to make sure that they have a notebook in front of them and they're writing things down. And maybe the teacher is guiding them a little bit more with visuals, that may be that the teacher needs to use the whiteboard feature a little bit more than, just talking to the kids, or, thinking through what can a student have in front of them, as a separate handout, or, something else to follow along with that gives them a little bit more concrete, tangible input that, whether they're touching it and they're, or they're just looking at something that they can follow along with while they're also listening.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. That's a great question. I think probably something that we're all going to be challenged with, at different times of the year and different contexts too. So thank you guys so much. And this is my personal work email address. So you can feel free to reach out to me if you have any other questions or things that come up later. I'm going to share the recording of this with Marcy so she can send it out to everyone else, and I'll send her my PDF handouts that I've mentioned as we've been going through too. But thank you all so much for, you know, your attention this morning. I know this, like we talk about the kids, it's not easy for parents to sit at their computer screens for more time than what's already required of us either. So I appreciate your attention, and it's been a pleasure getting to see you all.
Megan, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Take care, everyone, and have a great school year.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.